to another episode of Aquarian Light. Today's episode is called The Lovers. This topic is formed around many questions we get asked all the time. The reason we get asked these questions is because, well, I think that people have this sense that there is something mystical, beautiful, and higher that can be achieved through love and through the union of a man and a woman. So that's one reason. The other reason is because we're involved in spiritual studies, and there is a topic around how to work with the creative energy. And not understanding this force, people can become enamored with and fascinated about this topic. And it can highlight a lot of their own insecurities, fears, sense of impatience, or despair. All of these things come up. And it's okay to have things come up. Those are things inside of us. But we wanted to dive deeper into this topic and provide some insights, some support, and have a record there that we can easily share with people who are struggling around this topic, and that people can come back to when they lose their way, get confused, or they're just seeking more guidance and help in this part of their life.
So to clarify today, we're going to be speaking about relationships, and in the sense of relationships once we've awakened, right? So we're both going to talk about the situation, let's say if one was in and they awakened consciousness and they're already in a relationship, and how to deal with that if, say, your partner is still not there with you at that moment in time. And then we're also going to talk about how to move forward with finding a partner once we're there, and someone that is, equally at our level that could do the work with us, right? There's a sense of we can feel more isolated even from amongst friends, right? And other people when we come into this path, and we feel more isolated, more alone, like no one understands us, right? So then when trying to find someone to share your life with and do the work with, preferably. And well, I guess we could start with this topic in the general, but like I would definitely say hopefully we would look to find someone who does the work with us and have the patience there. I do think that when we are in a situation where we, have an awakening already with someone, then obviously that's our karma and we have to work with that. And that's something that, we work with. It's not okay to just like run away from someone or something, that we're put in the situations we're put into for a reason. But I do think that a lot of the times, people maybe can be desperate and they go looking for people that are still not at their level, hoping that maybe they're just going to score someone they're going to convert or something along those lines. And the big thing starting with that is patience, right? So, when we come into this and we're single, right? And yet we are still having a desire to find something external to satisfy us, then really this isn't the right mode to be looking for partner anyway, right? And I would say that anyway, regardless of somebody's in the spiritual work or not, and we're trying to fill some hole of us, we're going to seek out, the defects, right? That we're putting out. It's not healthy. We're seeking an unhealthy form of attachment. So especially if we're coming into the work and we're doing self-observation and we're in a situation where we are solo, it's a perfect time to observe the feelings that, for example, put us into that situation, and to go through the healing, right? Because when we're in that mode, if we're trying to attract someone of a level that is into spirituality and doing the work, right, then we have to also too be at that own level of like inner peace and contentment, right? We've talked about when you unplug that you connect to unconditional love, and it's that love for your being, for understanding that you are part of this multiple perfect unity. And when you connect to that, you love yourself, and not narcissistically. It's just that you are love. You literally are love. And then everyone is you. So you love everyone. And at that point, you don't need to seek love outside or seek love in others. Instead, you are love. And now you actually can healthily love somebody else and have a healthy relationship, right? Because you're not, you're actually trying to love for the sake of love and that actual higher emotion, as opposed to what our ego construes at love, and we've almost certainly never actually felt in our lives before. Actually unplugging, we have these, depending on our filters, love to us might be attachment or support, dependency, things of that nature, but it's always some type of ego. Maybe it's involved in lust, right? Whatever it is, it's not truly love. It's some type of infatuation, limerence, you know. And if we're seeking in limerence for more limerence, then that's what we will attract. And in a sense, if we're given the opportunity to be doing the work on ourselves beforehand, then that's our chance to work on ourselves and get ourselves to the stability and that stable point that we can then also attract someone else who's stable. Because if we're unstable, we're going to attract another person who's unstable. That's literally how we work energetically. We attract people of our same vibration, our same frequency. So if we're still at a low vibration internally, we'll attract more people that are low vibrational. And then, of course, we'll get a karmic lesson out of that. That's how karmic relationships work. You know, we consistently keep going through the same cycles and the same negative bonds over and over again, usually because of the fact that we're not learning our lessons. And usually the lessons is to heal that lack and that feeling of not being worthy of love inside ourselves. And that's really the first step.
Yeah, it's a very common lesson for people to go through, and they can come into relationships, sure, no problem. It's not that, oh, there's no one out there for me, but what kind of person did you find? You only ever find yourself. And this is something that you will see taught in many different self-help materials, different traditions. It doesn't really matter that it's taught in some religious communities as well. They're all pointing at the same wisdom, the same truth. I recall years ago, even as I was raised a Christian, and they used to give the young people these books out of church, and it would say, looking at myself before loving someone else. What was their point? Their point was the same thing, using their own words. And that was, how could you possibly go out there with some laundry list of the perfect partner needs to look like this, sound like this, be all of these things? For me, that's very self-centered. But then also never even looking at one's own self to see, well, what do I bring to the table? And of course, that's an intellectual, quite external way to describe it. And these things go deeper and deeper in layers of understanding what's happening at the subtler levels, at the psychological levels. But even if we started with a very surface entry level, we can see that there's a big problem with this way of thinking, this way of looking outside of myself and trying to find someone to fix something for me, to make me feel a certain way, to make me feel whole, make me feel special, give me warm, fuzzy feelings. It's very needy. It just hearing the description is off-putting, right? If someone came along to you and was having that energy of, give me all these things. It's like the annoying salesperson in a mall that is trying to push something on you and saying, oh, you've got to buy this product, and here, sign here, part with your money. And the first thing you feel is repulsion, right? Because something is imbalanced, something is not right. And so we naturally, intuitively move away from that. So what the person in this state has to learn, usually through the school of hard knocks, and many of us went through this, right? We have these lessons under our belt, and you experience and learn these things, the wisdom of this foundation for having positive interpersonal relationships, intimate relationships. You learn this by experiencing a lot of difficulty, a lot of pain, and reflecting and beginning to understand, what part do I play in this? Because at first we think it's something outside of us, right? We think it's their fault. Oh, they were a bad person. They didn't love me like I deserved, like I was supposed to be treated. They didn't listen to me. They didn't pay attention. They falsely accused me. They listened to bad friends. Whatever the excuse we say, we blame the other person, which, okay, of course, it takes two to tango, but it's not helpful to think of the other person's shortcomings, right? The only thing that we have control over is our own internal state. So that's where we need to start. And if you find yourself either in these kinds of relationships, say an unavailable partner, or the relationship never lasts, it starts and then it ends very quickly, whether it's because the person loses interest or you're fighting all the time, all these kinds of problems, or whether you feel like you just can't find someone and you're looking and you're such a good person, you're such a catch. Why aren't they seeing it? All of these things. We have to start by understanding what is inside of us. And a lot of the psychologists, and even outside of spirituality, they suggest to go back to childhood trauma, right? Because the sense of lack, the unavailability, this has to do with wounds that come from either a mother or a father. And this is well known. So people will, if their mother or father was unavailable, or they were available, but they were cruel or abusive, then the person will seek out someone that repeats this behavior because it feels familiar, and in a way it feels safe and comforting. Now, there's all kinds of therapies that are recommended, and sometimes people can work through the recommended treatments and exercises and come to a place of healing. But what would you say is is the best way in your experience on how to deal with these kinds of things?
Well, you mentioned dealing with trauma and facing trauma in self. I mean, that's not just a good way to heal ourselves to be in a relationship. That's literally how we can disidentify from our false sense of self, that what we always talk about, and break away from that dualistic thinking. But really what it comes down to too is it just patience and work, right? And if you're really serious about doing, say, the esoteric work, and you start doing the esoteric work and you're single, and now you think, like, just because you've fixed yourself and you've already awakened, or whatever spiritual ego you develop, that now you need to find somebody and just take it to the next level and start working with the energies of the creative energies and all of these types of things. And really, I mean, you're still pretty much just where you're at. You just maybe switch around, now you do esoteric work, but at the same time, it's like, okay, what's really going on, right? If you're going on like dating apps and stuff and going on dates with just regular lay people, it's like, well, what are you expecting? One is that, you know, the work is the self work, right? So it's nothing to do with somebody else on the outside. But as we'll talk about later too, people that are in the situation that stay awakened in their inner partnership, right? And that's their karma. they'll tell you that it could be very complicated in a situation like that. So if you're struggling to do your own inner work and you're actually given the situation where you could do it on your own, like why are you going to try to complicate it? Well, who's really doing that? It's the ego. The ego doesn't want you to do well. And so the ego wants to complicate your situation even more. The ego wants you to, you know, not make it and not actually awaken the consciousness and not unplug from the matrix, And the truth really is that this whole thing, right, is and I know we usually bag on this because it's used for black magic, but it's law of attraction, right? Now, law of attraction isn't necessarily what people think it is in the sense of what we use it for. And when we use it for black magic, people think the law of attraction is, well, I think something, so I get it, right? Which is true, but really what it is that we attract what our vibrational frequency is from the construct. That's why actually when you get that car that you want, it comes with karma, right? Because, well, yeah, I got that car I wanted through like thinking an egoic desire. So I actually attracted it through negative energy. Thus I get negative feedback from the construct itself, right? Which is why we always say a true law of attraction is to, try to just change your reality to be at a higher frequency. And at that higher frequency, then sure, maybe finances and stuff like that will come, right? That's what we were saying. But you want to create a better frequency and a more dharmic frequency for yourself. And it's the same thing with the relationships too, right? So divinity will bring us a partner that matches up to us based on our frequency. It's really impartial. Like divinity is not this like God in the sky that's like vengeful or all of that. It's just abstract source or whatever, and that's in all of us. And basically, the contract works by what you put out is what you get in, and that's in anything, and that's what we've been talking about. So with that type of attraction, right? Well, if we, like I said, we want to attract a partner at a high frequency who's awakened and out of the contract, then we also have to be awakened and out of the contract. We're not going to attract someone like that from before. And if we're not, and also if we get to that point, we really wouldn't be interested in someone that's not there. We think that we need a partner before we get there, and we think that we're awakening, and we think we've awakened. We think that like, oh, I need a partner. Oh, I need that. And that's not your ego. It's just that we think that we deserve it and all these things. But who is it? That's the false I. It's because you still haven't disidentified from that I. When you disidentify from that I, it's not really that important if you have a partner. It's like you're free. You're free from the contract, like we talked about last episode. And when you're free, you could be single, you could be with somebody, it doesn't matter. And then that's when divinity will come along and you'll find somebody else who's doing the work at the same level as you. And then you're like, we should get together because it makes sense. And divinity brought us together. And it's not even this like lustful, romantic type of thing. It really isn't, It's just like you can see the programming, you see the construct, you can see that it's been arranged for you, and it makes sense. This is the path that I'm going to go down. It's not even it's not like even a decision or a maybe or a no. It just is because you're living in the present and you are being. And again, so to attract a partner like that and to truly be, you have to be at that level. So you have to ask yourself, if you're looking around on dating apps and all these things, are you really at that level or are you lying to yourself? And I don't want to be too hard on people, but there is some aspect of this work, and especially in spiritual communities, is that when we come into this with the intellect and we don't actually do the work that we keep stressing this and pushing this, but we get attached to a spiritual ego. All we did basically is like what the people say in human design or things of that nature, which it's a great system, but how it's suggested to be used is not exactly how we can awaken the consciousness, right? You can't mechanically just say, oh, well, this is my unconscious personality and this is how I'm supposed to be if I'm being my authentic self because I want to be this better person, and say, I'm just going to start acting like this mechanically with my intellect and replace these egos with these egos. They're good egos, but they're still mechanical programs. And then say you're awakened, because true awakening isn't habits, changing your habits, changing all these things. Yes, all that stuff comes along with it, just because when you reach a higher level of comprehension, then you won't act a certain way anymore, right? Because you comprehend that you don't want to. But it's an actual shift in our view of reality. And at that shift in view of reality, you wouldn't be interested in looking for Tinder dates or even the fact that you think you need a partner because you would understand that you don't need anything at all because you have everything that you have inside of you because you are a fractal of God. Um, so that's the first aspect of this conversation we started on with, but that's truly what it is. We to focus on ourselves first, and everything else will be arranged for us by our innermost, right? So
I don't want to diminish or ignore the fact that people out there are in a lot of pain, right? So those people that are so desperate for love and feel like, why doesn't someone choose me? Why is everyone else getting chosen except for me? Why does this always happen? I have so much love to give. Someone really should try it and just give me a chance. I could make someone so happy. All these things that they say. And they're right to have this sense of yearning for something profound and yearning for this sense of oneness, wholeness. That's beautiful. And the part that can mislead people is what in Buddhism is called wrong view, right? Ignorant view. The thing they're yearning for is beautiful, mystical, and possible for everyone. But their approach to it, their understanding of how to get there or what it even really means is it's obscured by ego and by wrong thinking. So we sense that, okay, there is unity, there is beauty and love and adoration, but we go wrong when we think it's something outside of ourselves. So even when you are in a loving relationship, and it's not to be narcissistic or self-centered, but really you are being in a place of love, and the love is inside of you. It's not coming from the other person. That's the big confusion. And the piece behind this is that everything in the universe, in our egoic fallen way, we misperceive. We see everything wrongly. And this is how we create so much tension, so much suffering. We think everything is outside of ourselves. And so we struggle and we push. We come out of that beautiful state of flow where we're in harmony with all the energies, and we try to strive. We try to make something, to create something, to push against the way that the energies are moving, to create that discord, the disharmony, and think that we can egoically force a particular outcome. And these things don't work like that. It's like the quote I think I've said many times. I'm not sure if I've said it on this podcast or not, but it's like Ram Dass said, one of his gurus who could make money come out of a crocodile's mouth or something like that. He said, oh, you can have everything in the world when there's no more you to have it. And that's essentially how it works. So this separated part of the universe that thinks it can go out and get something for itself will never be happy, because either it can't get it or it can obtain it in corruption, and it will be corrupt. So it can supposedly get the thing, but in a bad way. It's like the person that manifested the car, and then maybe they have a car accident and break their leg or something. So these people who are seeing love as something outside of themselves, they can get a relationship, no problem, for some of them. But that doesn't mean it's a relationship of love. It doesn't mean it's a relationship of harmony, because they're still going outside of themselves to obtain something, So there, to even have this erroneous concept of getting something from the other person, whatever you're getting comfort, getting attention, getting a listening ear, these all of these things are going to turn your standard societal thinking on its head, because we think of these things as good things, right? Like, oh, it's good to listen to someone, it's good to be comforting, and it's good to do those things, but to seek them and to crave them and then to expect them and be angry that you don't get them, these are the kinds of energies that taint and tear down a relationship, whether it's before you even get one, and those same energies prevent you from coming into a loving relationship, or you're in a relationship that has some kind of love and those energies destroy it. Because when we are self-centered, when we don't see the other person, then all it is really is like anything in life. It's a relationship with ourself. And when we're not in a place of wholeness in ourself, then all of our internal self-hatred and our internal insecurity, we then project onto the other person until we hate them because we hate ourselves. And then we think it's their fault, and then it's over. So we come back to the same thing. And this topic can go deeper and deeper and deeper, because we can talk about it, but people can hear these words and not really understand it. It's something that you have to understand with your heart, with your intuition, and energetically. You have to feel this wisdom in your own energetic field. And this understanding can come as we move back towards the vibration of unity and divine love.
Yeah. And the important point you said is that people are in so much pain, and because they're searching, it's straight up is because they're searching for something external that is within. And the biggest issue really is that no one has the courage or the humility to face themselves. It's pretty simple, really, You face yourself, you disidentify from that trauma and all that pain because you find the love within your being, right? And you said it takes facing yourself, sitting with it, you know, to comprehend that is something separate from you. You know, it could take a short amount of time if you work on it 24/7, or it could take longer than that if you don't have a lot of time. But the thing is if we're in meditation, every time if we're at the beginning of the workout, we haven't disidentified yet, just sit with your traumas, face them, go have sit with them until you stop feeling sorry for yourself, stop seeing that that's not really you, and you connect to your being, and you have the humility to surrender to the fact that there is no you, right? And that you are this multiple unity. And, it's not awakening and becoming a guru or a master, right? You'll have that feeling for a fleeting moment, and you'll go back to being yourself. At the beginning, it's very hard to maintain that state. But, once that genie does come out of the bottle, once you rub that lamp, it can't go back inside. You can't experience reality even for a split second outside of space and time, because it is outside of space and time. That split second is all you need is eternity. It's the first step into forever. And then at that point, then you see the illusion of everything, and you see the message hidden in everything. You could do the work, you could dissolve the ego, and then slowly but surely, progressively, the work takes a long time too. Not maybe as long as we think, because we attribute, the fact that, it takes us like 100 lifetimes just to get to that point. And then maybe it's like 1 or 2 full lifetimes to actually dissolve all the ego. But it also isn't that fast. It's not like, oh, now I see the ego and I get rid of it tomorrow. So it does take patience and diligence and tenacity, willpower, all those things. But the first thing before you can do all of that, before you put all of those things in, is you have to actually connect to your intimate, and I think that's what we always talk about at every episode, relate to every topic, but it's the same thing to this. It's never something external. It's not the relationship, it's not what you eat, it's not somebody else that you think is your enemy, it's not the government, It's not religion. Whatever you think it is, it's not that. It's inside of you, so now I think we can move on to um the other situation that we talked about, right? So that is you've just had a spiritual awakening, you've popped, unplugged from the construct. Maybe it was spontaneous, right? Or maybe it's been through some work with some esoteric studies. But either way, you're starting to now walk this path, and you're in a relationship already with a partner who has no interest in the current moment in the spiritual work. So this obviously is a very now difficult and complicated situation. And it can be in varying levels of complication, right? So obviously, the most ideal situation is that your partner loves and respects you at their level and cooperates with the fact that you're doing spiritual work and doesn't, shun you or try to make you feel weird or actively try to interfere with your work, which could be even worse, right? Um, where it becomes like some type of conflict and problem, right? Because in that case, then, you know, it becomes a little bit like more like likely that either they pull you out of the work or you might have to end up in a split really quickly. Because that's an untenable situation, right? But we'll focus on, let's say that at least your partner is a decent person at their level and respects your decision to start doing spiritual work. And this can still be a very, very difficult for us, right? So we're doing spiritual work, our partner is still like asleep in the construct, right? All of a sudden, things don't seem to align as much anymore, interests change. The old unconscious habits that we have as we observe ourselves, we don't want to engage with those anymore, but the partner still does. It starts to create like a gulf, and then we wonder like what we should do. Should we try to change them, right? Or is it our fault? Or, and all of these things, right? Again, it kind of comes down to similar advice as we gave before, is when we do our work, we're only responsible for ourselves, and the other people are responsible for them. And the best thing we could do is, why are we in the situation? Why are we put in a situation where we're waking another partner? Well, perhaps they're meant to trigger things in us, and that is our karma to help us do our work. So one, we would never suggest anybody break up with somebody. Even like the masters say, if somebody's in that situation, even though it's difficult, they're put there by their karma. They're supposed to be. Now, if it runs its natural course and you end up going apart and, it comes into a natural type of conclusion, that's one thing. But kind of how we talked about psychological gym in the past, we should really try to work with our circumstances and see what about our circumstances there is to learn about ourselves, right? And then, also just live in the present and not worry about like how this is going to work out or not, because yeah, it could end up in a split. There's also times that other people are on a different clock than us and we're meant to bring them into the teachings and we just don't even realize it yet. I know there's many examples of, say, one student does the work and their partner's not interested. They do the work for quite a bit of time, and then eventually their partner, from maybe their raised vibrations, they already maybe low-key at a quietude too, they see them changing for the better, then they get interested as well. They come into the teachings, everybody is happy, right? And if it had been a problem or a problem had been made, maybe they both would end up out of the work or they would have ended up separated and the other one wouldn't have. So it's better to focus on yourself, because in a way, and we've talked about this with awakening in general, is at the beginning, before we go out and be a teacher or a guru or a master, all the things, the best way we can help the collective is just do the work on ourselves also, right? Because in a sense, as we raise our vibration, we are part of the collective. We subtly raise the collective's vibration. And that's dealing with the third factor of sacrifice that we brought up in times past. Sacrifice at the beginning is as simple as you just sitting down to meditate, 30 minutes a day. Because by sacrificing that little bit of time, because you were unconscious before that, right? So that in itself is a little bit of sacrifice. It's a low octave of it, and yes, we will be asked to do more as we grow. But when we're early on in the work, the most important thing we could do is to focus on ourselves and raising our own frequency and trying to get to that moment where we disidentify from the contract. because then we can truly help more other people. We can't really help others until we help ourselves first.
Yeah, worrying about, is my partner going to come into the spiritual work, or some kind of truth that I've found that I'm interested in, or certain spiritual practices that I've come into, is the same about worrying anything, and worrying about is the same as worrying about anything in the future. So it would be the same as saying, are my savings going to be enough when I retire? Or will I have a roof over my head 10 years from now? It's all speculation that highlights the fact that we don't have a crystal ball that can tell us the future. And really, that kind of speculation is just coming from your fear. So, like you said, to be present, a more helpful way to observe and work with those things arising is to see, well, where is this fear coming from? There's obviously still a place inside of me that is not yet neutral, balanced, and at peace. There's still fear, and fear comes from identification and separation, right? We think that we're a separate entity to the collective, a separate piece to the whole universe. And then we're on our own, and everything is against us, and things can go in a way that's not favorable. We're identified, and so then we become tied up in expectations of what we want the future to hold. And so, in the same way as we apply this to other aspects of our life, will I still be in this job in the future? What will my career be? What will my job be? All of these are attachments, and all attachments are part of desire and part of unhappiness. So, in the same way that if you are in desire, let's say you're in uh, anxiety, and all you want is to just feel normal and not feel anxious, well, that resistance, that not accepting the present moment, is exactly what exacerbates and makes the anxiety worse. So, someone who maybe has these low-key undertones of some kind of insecurity and fear that the relationship is not going to work out, even if they are in a relationship, there's a part of them that's not fully in wholeness, that's not fully in unity. So there was enough of them in unity to lead to the partnership, but then there's still more to be cleared out, right? Just because you're in a loving relationship, or even a relationship with a spiritual partner, that doesn't mean you're 100% pure. Maybe you've eliminated certain structures or egos to do with trauma at this level, but you still have your very deep infraconscious levels that you are not yet aware of. So you're aware of your subconscious, and you've cleared a lot of things there. And even that, there could be something that you still don't see, but you're at a healthy, functioning baseline, right? So the work is always the same, in that we need to observe what is coming up and go deeper to understand. And from that perspective, whether we're in a relationship or not, we're doing the same thing. Really, what we need is to love the work itself. And so if you're in a partnership, and the partner is maybe triggering things inside of you, whether it's your pride, your insecurity, whether you want to be dominant or you want attention, all of these things, let them be triggered and see them. See the triggers, see what comes up, and go, great, I've got this content. So, in a way, even if your partner is mean to you, shall we say, subjectively, or uh, sometimes, and I'm not saying that people should stay in an abusive relationship, but people can get into arguments, right? And you can have your view and think they weren't fair to you, or whatever it was. If things are not going well, if you're thinking, oh, we're not fully in harmony, we're disagreeing, or even they're not doing the work, or they were doing the work, but now I'm worried about their work, I think they're too in ego, all these kinds of things, they're just more content for your own work. So, in that way, what's the problem? There is no problem other than things arising phenomena, something to observe and something to work with. And so then that brings us to a true partnership. A true spiritual partnership is where both people are committed to taking each other back to their own being, to their own divinity.
Oh yeah, that's an important point, right? Because that's the whole point of relationships, right? Not just our romantic relationships, even our family, our friends, right? It's all arranged for us to trigger each other and work on the things that we need to work on. That's where we're put in each other's lives from, the karmic relationships we had before. It's all arranged by the being before we even incarnate the entire shebang, the whole movie, right? So, in a healthy relationship, both people are in observance of themselves. Thus, they are helping each other by triggering each other to help them eliminate that aspect of themselves and actually get closer to self-realization, especially in the romantic relationship aspect. And then you add in the work with the creative energy and things like that. That's the most intimate and close work, but it's really how we should approach work with anything. So how can we be in a relationship if we get triggered by other people and then, we point the finger at them and we don't take responsibility for ourselves, right? Our feelings get hurt when someone corrects us or something, things of that nature. If we have no humility, if we have no compassion, if we're constantly jealous, uh, I pointed to a lot of the negative aspects of egos, but usually that's what it is. It's the fears, right, that come out. Usually the positive aspects of egos, we don't think badly of ourselves, although they might tick other people off. But what ticks people off in us, it's the negative aspects of the ego. So, that rubs us the wrong way. And yeah, so if we have these issues with jealousy, insecurity, you know what I mean, rage, all of these types of things, well, we need to eliminate those before we could have a healthy relationship with anyone, right? Because if they are a good match for us, then they probably should trigger things that will trigger those feelings in us. And if we're not in observation of ourselves, then though we will identify with those egos and we will manifest them and then get into fights and arguments. Whereas, sure, if you're an awakened person, you also feel those feelings and you're going to get triggered by your partner, but then it's like, oh, great, my partner triggered this in me. Now I can get rid of it. And that's how it's supposed to be, right? And that's how we do work together towards a common goal.
And really, that's what makes a relationship where both people are in the spiritual work very beautiful. It's not to say that it's perfect, smooth sailing all the time, and both people are good little angels, and no one ever does something that will annoy the other. But I mean, there's no broken plates, right? Ideally, you're not uh you're not hitting each other over the head or something like that. So you will have things come up. That's the point. But the key critical point is to work with what comes up rather than to identify with it and be pulled into it. Because those things that come up are what have the capacity to destroy the relationship. And we'll see people in spiritual communities, they will start a new relationship, maybe with someone who's studying esotericism, and they're two students and they're very happy together. And then a few months later, you hear, oh, they broke up. And you can feel disappointed for them because you want them to find someone they can work with long term. But unless they were a terrible match for each other, it's hard to find a perfect match, right? There's just what has been arranged for you, whether according to your karma or organized by your being, because you can still work in a karmic relationship, right? Even if it wasn't organized by your being. You found it all by yourself. It wasn't the best, but there you are. So you can work with that. You don't need to throw it away, as we've said, but the key is to work with it. And when we don't, then we just get pulled down to the lowest common denominator. We get pulled to the level of being where our problems sit, and then those energies have a corrosive nature, and whatever is good and wholesome and positive is going to be corroded by that.
Yeah. You said it's funny what you said about there not being a perfect match. There actually is a perfect match, but the funny thing is that, and we'll probably talk about this in another discussion sometime, whether it's here or in a lecture or something of that nature. But is the concept of the twin flame very overused to take advantage of a lot of hurting souls. Um, but the truth is, right, if you do have a perfect match, you actually, they're a terrible match for you unless you're actually fully awakened, right? Because your perfect match, when you're both unconscious, you trigger each other so much that it just can't work. Even though like the highs are really high, it's just there's too much when you're both asleep. The resistances are too much. So even in that sense, if you're looking for your perfect match and you're not awakened, you probably shouldn't. You look for something that's a fairly good match, and then you work together. You know, in that aspect, like some maybe high level soulmate that you've been through many lifetimes with, something along like those lines. But that's usually a more easier relationship as opposed to having your exact twin soul before you're both ready to do the work. Twin souls aren't meant to do the work together until damn near the end of the path. We look at like the myth of Jesus and Mary Magdalene, right? Like Jesus was already a master at that point, and a far into the work master, not like just becoming a master. Like he was. So there's that. Um, but yeah, it's just I think the most important thing, right? And it's whether you came into it with a partner who's not in the work or you're just alone, right? Is to just be, right? If you could just be and focus in on yourself, then the situation isn't a problem. Like you said before, there is no problem. If I'm single, it's not a problem because I'm here and I exist and I'm alive and I'm an eternal being. I do not die and I'm here working on myself. And if I'm with my partner and they don't not yet interested in the teachings and they're not, like I said, overtly trying to disturb my work, then then there's no problem either. I'll just do my work on myself, focus on myself, and just be in the moment and not worry about what the future holds in this situation because that's up for their being to decide for them. And I'm concerned with trying to find my way back to my being. And the advice is kind of the same for both, right? Well, it's kind of the same advice for anything, but the more we self remember, the more we stay present, then, you know, the easier life will be, right? We just vibrate a little bit higher frequency. I mean, we don't have to, sure. We could continue to identify with ego. We could continue to vibrate poorly, even when we know better, and then we'll get more karma. And then we get more medicine, and that medicine will hopefully then push us back to, making it a little bit easier on ourselves. But I think that's pretty much
Yeah,
I don't know if I have much to say
no,
more on the
that's
topic.
that I think that's quite comprehensive. And if people listen to this message carefully and understand it in their heart, then they'll be starting off on the right foot. They have their best chance at coming into something beautiful, exciting, and wonderful. So, all that to say, thank you very much for tuning in and joining in this conversation. We hope it is a help to you. Reach out to us and let us know if you have any comments or other topics that could be helpful. And remember to be the light, be the change you want to see.
And vibrate at a higher frequency, maximize your dharma for the collective. Love and light. Take care, everybody.
We'll see you next time.